My name is Ashley Carter, and the last time my father looked at me without disappointment, I was a child, still naive enough to believe in fairy tales of family honor. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat in the back row of the bustling Houston Community Center, watching the celebration for my cousin Jessica's retirement unfold like a carefully staged play. The decorations were all red, white, and blue, elementary school kids' drawings tacked along the walls, a buffet table groaning with home-cooked dishes and store-bought cakes. I wore faded jeans and a charcoal hoodie, civilian clothes that felt strange after years of wearing a police uniform every day. Sometimes I caught my own reflection in the window and barely recognized myself without the badge and belt, without the sturdy boots and the sense of purpose they gave me. It was early evening, the Houston heat finally giving way to something like a breeze. The crowd was large. Jessica had always been the golden child in our extended family, the one who did everything right, who never rebelled or questioned the rules. 23 years of teaching at Travis Elementary School, dozens of parents and former students there to thank her for shaping their lives. Everywhere I looked, people were hugging her, pressing bouquets into her arms, showering her with praise. I kept my head down, my hands folded tightly in my lap. I didn't want to draw attention or answer questions I wasn't ready for. Not yet. I just wanted to blend in, watch the celebration from a safe distance, and maybe slip out before anyone noticed me. But that was wishful thinking. In my family, no one ever really goes unnoticed for long, especially not the black sheep. Ashley. My Aunt Linda's voice cut through the chatter like a siren, sharp and impossible to ignore. I'd recognize that condescending tone anywhere. She was a tall woman, always impeccably dressed, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that managed to be warm and cold at the same time. She made her way over to me, weaving through tables and folding chairs, her heels clicking on the polished linoleum. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her gaze sweeping over my outfit with a familiar mixture of confusion and disapproval. "Jessica will be so thrilled you could make it. It's not every day the whole family gets together, you know." I forced a smile. "She invited me," I said simply, keeping my tone neutral. In truth, I'd almost turned down the invitation. My relationship with family gatherings was complicated at best, strained at worst. There were always whispers, side glances, the unspoken assumption that I was somehow less successful, less stable, less worthy, because my life hadn't followed the neat little script everyone else seemed to recite. Aunt Linda leaned in, lowering her voice just enough to make the comment private, but not so quiet I could miss the point. "Still between jobs, I assume?" She smiled, a flash of perfect teeth. "Your dad was saying you're having trouble finding something steady. It's tough out there for everyone these days, isn't it?" The question hung between us like a spiderweb, delicate, sticky, impossible to escape. My jaw tightened, but I kept my composure. "Something like that," I said. She laughed, a quick, practiced sound that was more performance than joy. "Well, at least you showed up. That's what matters, isn't it? Family." I glanced across the room. My father, Robert Carter, was standing near the coffee station, his arm around my Uncle Steve, both of them deep in conversation. He looked older than I remembered, grayer at the temples, slower to move, but with the same strict posture he drilled into us as kids. When he caught my eye, he nodded, his expression unreadable. For most of my life, my dad had made his disappointment in me obvious, sometimes without saying a word. I joined the police force right after college, left Houston for a while, took assignments in other states, other cities. Every time I came home, He'd ask when I was going to settle down, find a real job, marry a nice man, give him grandkids. And every time, I'd offer the same vague answers, knowing the truth would only widen the gulf between us. Tonight was supposed to be about Jessica, but old habits die hard. The rest of the family had gathered in a loose circle around her, laughing, sharing stories, acting like nothing ever changed in our world. But I knew better. As Aunt Linda drifted away, I tried to settle back into my chair and focus on the party, but I couldn't. The feeling of being on the outside looking in had never been stronger. I watched Jessica across the room, her effortless grace, her natural charm. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, still holding that a world's best teacher a mug everyone joked about but secretly admired. She was hugging kids, smiling for photos, listening to proud parents thank her for being such a positive influence. There was a time when Jessica and I had been close, before adulthood and distance and different life choices got between us. I remembered sleepovers at her house, late-night talks about our futures, the shared dreams of making a difference in the world. Now, it felt like we lived in separate universes. The chatter in the room swelled, the laughter rose in waves, and I pressed my hands harder into my knees to keep from fidgeting. It was easier to pretend I was just another guest, just a spectator. But the truth was, no matter how quietly I sat, the past, and my place in the family, had a way of finding me. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it for now, not wanting to invite more questions or draw more eyes. For this one night, I just wanted to be Ashley, not Officer Carter, not the family failure, not the disappointment, just a woman in a hoodie, at her cousin's retirement party, hoping maybe, just maybe, to belong. The music faded to a soft background hum as people gathered around Jessica for group photos. I tried to look occupied, absently stirring the ice in my plastic cup, but there's only so long you can hide before family finds you. "Hey, there she is," boomed my Uncle Steve's voice from behind. He had the sort of confidence that came from never having to question his choices or apologize for them. He squeezed between folding chairs, balancing 2 bottles of Shiner Bock in one hand, and dropped one in front of my dad. "Ashley Carter, our family's wandering soul," he announced to nobody in particular, his smile wide and good-natured, though tinged with that familiar edge of condescension. "How's life treating you these days, kiddo? Still on the road, looking for yourself?" I forced a chuckle, pretending to take the joke lightly. "Something like that, Uncle Steve." He plopped down next to me, the chair groaning under his weight. "You know, your dad says you've been all over lately. Dallas, San Antonio, even a stint up in Colorado. Didn't realize police work had that many day tours." He winked, making sure to use a police work-y in that special tone, the one that makes you feel like you're a kid playing dress-up. My father took a sip of his beer, watching me over the rim. I could see the question he didn't need to voice. Why can't you just be normal? Why can't you be more like Jessica? I shrugged, trying to seem unbothered. Every city has its problems. Someone's got to help. That answer didn't satisfy Steve. Of course, nothing ever did. He leaned in, voice dropping, suddenly more serious. "Listen, Ash, I know things haven't been easy for you, bouncing around. If you ever need something more stable, let me know. We're always hiring at the plant. Good benefits, no night shifts, and it'd make your old man happy to have you nearby. Just think about it." I bit back a sigh. It was the same pitch I'd heard since I turned 25. The offer of a real job is something safe and predictable, something that wouldn't make family gatherings so awkward. The offer was genuine in its way, but it always landed like a reminder. No matter what I accomplished, it wasn't what they valued. I looked away, watching Jessica pose for another round of photos, arm in arm with her former students. I wondered if she ever felt the same pressure, the same suffocating weight of expectations, or if being the family favorite had its own kind of loneliness. Suddenly, Aunt Linda was back, holding a tray of mini quiches. "You must be hungry, Ashley. Why don't you join the group?" Her words were sweet, but her eyes flicked down at my clothes again. I was sure she'd comment on the hoodie if she could find a polite way. I stood, taking a quiche out of politeness, but kept my distance. As I did, Jessica caught my eye and waved me over. Her smile was warm, and for a second I remembered being 10 years old again, sneaking extra desserts together at Thanksgiving. "I'm so glad you're here," as she whispered, looping her arm through mine. "Honestly, it means more than you know. I never know who's going to show up at these things anymore. Family's weird, right?" She laughed, and I couldn't help but smile. For all the years apart, Jessica was still Jessica, uncomplicated, genuine, never one for gossip or backstabbing. It was easy to see why the family adored her. Before I could say anything, Aunt Linda jumped in, barely hiding her disapproval. "Jessica's always been our rock, haven't you, sweetheart? And look at you now, 23 years. You make us all proud." She paused, then gave me a sidelong glance. Everyone's on their own timeline, I suppose. There it was, the subtle reminder of my supposed failures. I swallowed hard and focused on Jessica's face, letting her optimism buffer me from the sting. "Don't listen to her," Jessica said under her breath. "We're all a little lost sometimes. Besides, being a cop is incredible. You've got stories I could never imagine." I almost laughed, but stopped myself. Most of my stories weren't dinner table safe. Instead, I just nodded. "Thanks, Jess. Maybe someday I'll tell you a few." As we talked, my phone buzzed in my pocket again, insistent, persistent, but I ignored it, afraid that even the act of checking my messages would be read as rude or, worse, an admission that I had something more important to do than celebrate my cousin's big night. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more the sound felt like a warning bell, some sixth sense from years on the force. I could sense the subtle shift in my own posture, the way my body tensed, ready to move if needed. Suddenly, the room felt smaller. I felt my father watching me, waiting for me to prove, what? That I could be part of this world, or that I never really belonged? All around me, the celebration continued, but inside, I felt miles away, a different world unfolding just beneath the surface, one filled with secrets, danger, and a kind of purpose that no one here could understand. Maybe that was why I kept coming back, why I still showed up at these events, no matter how painful, hoping, foolishly, that one day, things might be different. While the party carried on around me, I lingered at the edge of the room, half listening to snippets of conversation, laughter, and the occasional burst of applause as Jessica's former students told stories about her kindness and patience. I knew this world. I knew how it worked, the rituals, the expectations, the careful choreography of family pride and quiet competition. But every year, every gathering, I felt the same, like an anthropologist among a foreign tribe, observing customs that made sense to everyone but me. In a distant corner, Jessica's mother and Aunt Linda were admiring a stack of photo albums, their voices a gentle hum. The children ran between the tables, weaving around clusters of chatting adults, trailing paper napkins and helium balloons. For a moment, I wished I could just disappear, become one of those kids again, free from questions and judgments, from the unrelenting comparisons to a cousin whose life seemed to follow a script I'd never been handed. A new voice brought me back. Hey, stranger. Don't think you're getting out of here without saying hi. It was Megan, my older sister. She balanced a wobbly paper plate covered in cake and finger foods with one hand and reached to hug me with the other. At her feet, her son Caleb, 6 years old and in a clip-on tie, was methodically trying to poke a juice box straw through the side of his cup. Megan dropped into the folding chair beside me, sighing in relief. You always find the best hiding spots. I grinned. Old habits die hard. Megan was their middle child, the steady one. Married at 25, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs of Houston. She'd chosen the safe path, just like our parents always wanted. She had never teased or belittled me, not like some others, but there was often a quiet confusion in her eyes, like I was a riddle she couldn't quite solve. She leaned over, dropping her voice. How are you, really? I paused, the honest answer hovering in my throat. I'm surviving. How about you? How's the circus? I nodded toward Caleb, now running after Jessica's niece with a frosting-smeared grin. Megan laughed. Caleb starts first grade this fall. Emily's in soccer and ballet. I feel like I'm driving more than living. The house is always a mess, someone's always sick, and I still forget to defrost chicken for dinner. It's chaos, but it's ours, I guess. There was a wistfulness in her tone that made me smile. You make it look easy. She shot me a look. Please. I make it look loud and sticky. For a moment, we just watched the kids dart around, their voices echoing above the hum of adult conversation. You know, and Megan continued, they ask about you all the time. Caleb especially. He's obsessed with police. He keeps telling his friends his aunt is a superhero. I snorted. That's a new one. No, really. He tells everyone you catch bad guys and drive fast cars. Mom told him you help people, but you know how little boys are, they want details. He thinks you're basically Batman with a badge. I smiled, the warmth in her words mixing with a pinch of guilt. I'd missed so many family events, missed birthdays, holidays, sometimes whole seasons. I wanted to explain that it wasn't avoidance, it was the job. The calls at 2 a.m., the endless overtime, the cases that kept me away from birthday cakes and Sunday dinners. Megan nudged me, sensing my thoughts. They just want to know you. We all do. It's not easy, not knowing what to say when they ask where you are or what you do. I mean, I know you're a cop, but it's always vague. Houston's a big city. It's not like I can tell people you're working the bake sale. For a moment, I considered telling her the truth, the actual work I did now, the part that kept me up at night. But I held back. Explaining the real reason I disappeared so often, the danger, the classified cases, the pain of seeing families fall apart, it always seemed to make things worse. People wanted the movie version, not the reality. My phone buzzed again, the insistent vibration growing harder to ignore. I glanced at the screen, 3 missed calls, 2 texts, and a notification that made my heart rate spike. The world outside this party, the world that needed Officer Carter, was calling me back. I need to take this, I said, standing up quickly. Megan grabbed my arm, her voice soft but urgent. Ashley, just promise you'll visit soon. The kids miss you. And so do I. I squeezed her hand. I'll try, Meg. I promise. She smiled, but I could see the worry in her eyes. The same worry I'd seen in my own reflection, years ago, when I first put on the uniform. I walked toward the exit, feeling the old tug-of-war inside me, the part that wanted to stay, to belong, and the part that knew my place was somewhere else, doing a job my family would never quite understand. The night air outside was cool compared to the stuffy community center. The sky above Houston was streaked with clouds, the city lights flickering like a distant promise. I breathed in deeply, letting the crispness ground me. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd been ignoring, my police instincts taking over. As the call connected, the familiar voice on the other end confirmed it. I wasn't done being the outsider. Not tonight, maybe not ever. The cool Houston evening wrapped around me as I stepped outside, letting the heavy doors of the community center swing closed behind me. The dull thump was oddly satisfying, a barrier between me and all those expectations, all those judgments. The parking lot was almost full. Parents wrangled sleepy kids into minivans, retirees shared hugs and goodbyes. Laughter and celebration spilled out from the open windows, but out here, the night was calm, almost gentle. My phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I walked to the far edge of the lot, past a row of battered pickup trucks and a forgotten basketball hoop, and answered. Detective Carter, EI said, the practiced authority in my voice coming back like muscle memory. Ashley, it's Lieutenant Ramirez. Sorry to ruin your night, but we've got a situation. It came the response, quick and to the point. My body snapped to attention. Go ahead, sir. Houston Heights. 8-year-old girl taken from her front yard about 3 hours ago. Witnesses saw a blue sedan, partial plate. Her name's MIA Sanders. Local units need support, someone who knows how to handle abductions, manage the scene, and talk to the press. Chief asked for you by name. For a second, I closed my eyes, running through the mental checklist I'd built over years of these calls. Missing child. Witnesses. Potential interstate movement. My heart picked up speed. This was what I was trained for, what I'd chosen, even if it meant leaving parties and explanations and any hope of blending in. I'm 20 minutes out, EI replied, already moving toward my car. Text me the exact address and get Officer Nguyen to meet me with the case file. Yes. And, Carter? Be ready. The meteor's already there. You know how this gets. Copy that, EI said, ending the call. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the gravity settle. Somewhere in this city, a little girl's entire world had shattered. Every minute counted. The family in that house, they didn't care if I wore a uniform, if my family thought I was a disappointment, or if I'd missed out on cake and old memories. They needed someone who could help. That was me. I slid behind the wheel of my old Ford Taurus, a reliable department car with cracked upholstery and coffee stains on the dash. My civilian clothes felt odd, almost like camouflage, like I was still hiding. But as I turned the key and the engine sputtered to life, I felt my focus sharpen, my thoughts lining up in formation. As I drove, I watched the city shift. The community center faded into the rear view, replaced by the glowing skyline, the hush of residential streets, the yellow pulse of traffic lights. I tuned the radio to dispatch and let the chatter fill the silence, units calling in, requests for backup, updates from the scene. I remembered the first time I'd responded to a missing child call, years ago. The panic in the parents' eyes, the sense that time itself was sliding away faster than you could grab it. Every second felt like a lifetime. You learned to move fast, think faster, and never, ever let yourself get distracted by doubt. Tonight, I was ready. The closer I got to the address, the more the streets filled with police cars, their lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Neighbours stood in clusters on their lawns, faces pale and drawn. News vans blocked driveways, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. It was chaos, controlled, but only barely. I parked 2 blocks away, not wanting to crowd the scene. As I walked, I passed clusters of officers, detectives, evidence techs. They nodded at me, a few offering quick words of encouragement or updates. It was strange, knowing that in this world, I was respected, trusted to lead, to make decisions that mattered. Out here, nobody cared what my aunt thought or how many jobs I'd supposedly lost. They just wanted to know I could do the job. Officer Nguyen was waiting for me under the flicker of a street lamp, a thick folder in his hands. He looked nervous, young, the way I'd once been. "Detective Carter," he said, falling in step beside me. "We've got 2 witness statements, a grainy doorbell cam video, and a whole lot of scared parents. Meteor's already running the story. Amber Alert just went live." "Good. Let's walk the scene," I said, scanning the block. Police tape cordoned off the Sanders front yard. A blue bicycle lay abandoned on the grass, its training wheels askew. I felt a tightness in my chest, a familiar mix of anger and determination. This was personal, every time. Mrs. Sanders stood by the porch, surrounded by officers and a neighbor. Her eyes found mine, and I saw it, the desperate hope, the need for someone to tell her her daughter would come home. I introduced myself, gentle but direct. "I'm Detective Carter, Mrs. Sanders. I promise, we're doing everything we can." She nodded, clutching a small stuffed animal to her chest. Her voice was small, but steady. "Just bring her back. Please." "We will," I said, and meant it. As Nguyen filled me in, I reviewed the facts. MIA, 8 years old, last seen playing with her dog in the yard. Blue sedan, partial Texas plate. 2 witnesses, both elderly, both saying the same thing. Man in his 30s, baseball cap, no visible struggle, but MIA was gone in seconds. Evidence techs swept the grass for clues. Officers canvassed the neighbors. The press gathered at the edge of the tape, cameras flashing, voices raised in anxious questions. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was my world. This was where I belonged. And as the crowd pressed in, the reality of my double life hit me. Inside, at that party, I'd been the outsider. But out here, on the street, I was right where I was meant to be. The tension on the block was a living thing. Police radios crackled as officers set up a command post under the carport of the Sanders neighbor, their voices quick but disciplined. I'd led these searches before. The sudden energy, the blur of tasks, the sense of time both speeding up and slowing down. Every decision mattered. I moved through the clusters of uniforms and plainclothes, scanning faces for information, for hints of hope or new ideas. Evidence techs were dusting the abandoned bike for prints. Patrol officers were knocking doors, gathering footage from every doorbell camera within 5 blocks. The Amber Alert was live now, Mia's face already splashed across phones and news tickers throughout the state. I took a moment, standing at the edge of the yellow tape, looking at the spot where Mia's mother had said goodbye that afternoon, not knowing it would become a crime scene. For a flash, I saw my own mother's face, worried every time I was late coming home. The memory cut deep. I couldn't let myself stay there, not tonight. My phone buzzed again, another family group text. I almost laughed. The contrast between this world and theirs was like night and day, one full of cake and gentle competition, the other sharp with urgency and fear. I checked the message. It was Megan. "Are you okay? Where did you go?" For a moment, I considered typing back a quick lie. I had to run, long drive home. But instead, I slipped the phone away. It wasn't the time. My family couldn't know who I was here, the version of myself that mattered most. Not yet. I turned my attention back to the case. Nguyen was briefing me, holding out printouts of the witness statements. The car was last seen heading north, toward the freeway. Witnesses say the guy was white, maybe late 30s, bowl cap, sunglasses. No one got a full plate. Doorbell cam's blurry, but you can see the color, maybe a Toyota. I nodded. Send the video to the tech lab for enhancement. Check every stolen blue sedan in the county. And get patrol to set up roadblocks on all major routes out of the neighborhood. If he's still in Houston, we can box him in. Nguyen scribbled notes. Meteors asking for a statement. They know your lead. 5 minutes, EI said, scanning the street. Let's make sure we have something new before we talk to them. As he hurried off, I surveyed the neighborhood. The sun had set, and the street was lit by alternating flashes of red and blue. I could see neighbors standing in shadow, some crying, others just staring blankly at the police presence. There was always a moment, in every case like this, when hope felt both so close and impossibly far. I walked over to the makeshift command post, a folding table covered in maps and lists, radios buzzing with updates. Sergeant Mills was there, a veteran who'd worked abductions before. She gave me a grim smile. "We're checking the registered offenders in a 10-mile radius," a Mills said. 3 possibles so far, but only one with a blue car. We've got eyes on his place already. Good. I want a search warrant ready to go if he so much as twitches. Anything from the family? Mills shook her head. Mom's in shock. Dad's at work. Had to call him home. The grandparents are on their way. I nodded, feeling the heaviness settle across my shoulders. There were rules, procedures, things you learned by heart, but nothing prepared you for the human pain, the rawness that always waited at the edge of every search. Suddenly, a commotion at the edge of the crowd. Someone was arguing with a uniformed officer. It took me a moment to realize, Megan. She'd left the party and found her way here, worry written all over her face, dragging Caleb behind her. She spotted me, relief and confusion fighting for control. Ashley! What's going on? Why are you here? The officer said it's a police matter. He almost wouldn't let me through. I forced a smile, stepping away from the tape. Meg, I, and my professional self warred with the side that still wanted to be her little sister. You're not just a patrol officer, are you? Her voice was soft but cutting, full of hurt and wonder at once. They said you're in charge. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder. Nguyen was waiting, the press was circling, the Sanders family needed answers. For a second, I wanted to tell her everything, to let her see me as I was, badge and all. But old habits are hard to break. I have to work, I said, keeping my tone gentle. I'll call you when I can, I promise. Megan's face fell, but she nodded, pulling Caleb close. Just be safe, okay? As they turned to leave, Caleb looked up at me, his voice trembling. Will you find the girl? I knelt, looking him in the eyes. I'll do everything I can, buddy. That's a promise. He smiled, and Megan squeezed my hand one last time before joining the crowd. I watched them disappear, the lines between my worlds growing even blurrier. Turning back to the command post, I squared my shoulders and slipped fully back into Detective Carter mode. I briefed the team, coordinated the roadblocks, double-checked every angle. The press was waiting, their cameras trained on me. For once, I didn't feel like an imposter. I was exactly where I was needed. As I walked to meet the reporters, the thought hit me, my family might never really understand who I was out here. But tonight, that didn't matter. Tonight, the badge was enough. The news conference lasted all of 6 minutes, but it felt longer. The usual questions, any suspects, what was the motive, is the neighborhood safe, pelted me from all sides. The cameras caught every syllable, every hint of uncertainty on my face. I kept my voice even and my answers honest, never giving false hope but promising that every possible resource was being used. As soon as it was over, I made my way back behind the police lines. Officer Nguyen handed me the latest report. No sign of the blue sedan yet, but a hit on a stolen car matching the description from a grocery store parking lot 12 miles north. I called it in, ordering the nearest patrol units to sweep the area, while I coordinated the rest of the task force. My mind spun through logistics, routes, timelines, checklists. In moments like these, the adrenaline wasn't a high, but a current running beneath the surface, propelling me forward. While we worked, the Sanders family waited in their living room, blinds drawn, surrounded by officers and family friends. Every so often, I'd glance at their house, a scene I'd witnessed countless times, the word parents, the empty bedroom, the half-eaten dinner on the table, growing cold in the silence. I kept thinking of Megan and Caleb, picturing their faces among the crowd. Would they watch the news tonight and see me here, leading a search? Would Megan explain to her son that his aunt was the one in charge, or would she smooth the story, make it smaller and less scary, as parents do? My phone buzzed again, a message from Jessica this time, short and to the point. You left before I could say goodbye. Everything okay? I typed back, work emergency. I'm fine. Sorry to miss the end. Congrats again. I wanted to say more, wanted to explain, even apologize. But the words dried up before I could send them. The gulf between our lives had never felt wider. Officer Nguyen interrupted my thoughts. Detective, we've got a break. Traffic cam picked up a blue sedan heading north on 45. Partial match to the plate. Timestamp puts it 20 minutes after the abduction. Route? I asked, scanning the map. Headed toward the old industrial park, just before the county line. I nodded, switching gears. Get our teams moving. Block every exit. Have SWAT on standby. If he's desperate, we need to be ready for anything. Nguyen ran off, his voice crackling through his radio as he relayed instructions. I pulled my vest tighter, checked my gun and flashlight, then jogged to my car. The rest of the team fell in behind me, sirens off to keep the element of surprise. The drive was tense, headlights cutting through empty industrial streets and rows of shuttered warehouses. I tried to push family from my mind, but it crept in. Would they understand what this felt like? The fear, the hope, the weight of knowing every second counted? We converged on the industrial park, the silence broken only by the squawk of radios. I gave orders quickly. Cover every entrance, set up a perimeter. No one goes in until we have eyes inside. One of the patrol units spotted the blue sedan parked behind a row of shipping containers. The engine was still warm. Doors locked, windows dark. My pulse thundered as I led the tactical team in. We moved as one, every step measured and rehearsed, every flashlight beam cutting the gloom. A faint sound, crying, echoed from behind a rusty dumpster. My heart leapt into my throat. We swept around, guns drawn, and found a storage container with a cracked door. Inside, huddled and terrified but alive, was MIA Sanders. Her eyes met mine, wild, pleading. I knelt, holstered my weapon, and held out my hand. It's okay. You're safe now. I'm Officer Carter. Let's get you home. She burst into tears, latching onto my shoulder as the rest of the team checked the area for suspects. The man was gone, vanished into the maze of warehouses, but we'd gotten what mattered. MEA was safe. As I carried her outside, the world snapped back to life. Flashbulbs exploded, reporters shouted, radios buzzed. I shielded MEA from the chaos, holding her close as we hustled her to the waiting ambulance. For a second, I looked up and caught my own reflection in a passing van window, hair pulled back, face streaked with sweat and dirt, but with the unmistakable calm of someone who'd done her job. The press surged forward, but I held up a hand. No comment. Family needs privacy. That's all. Watching MIA reunite with her parents on the curb, I felt a surge of relief, tinged with exhaustion and a sadness I couldn't shake. The case wasn't over. The man who took her was still out there, and tomorrow would bring more questions, more work, more weight. But for now, a family was whole again. As the ambulance pulled away, I checked my phone one more time. Dozens of missed calls and messages, most from family, some from the department, some I couldn't even recognize. For the first time all night, I allowed myself a small, genuine smile. This is why I do it, I thought. Not for medals, not for recognition, and certainly not for approval at family dinners. For moments like this, a child returned, a family healed, a city reminded the hope is never wasted. I made my way back to my car, head spinning, body aching. My worlds had collided tonight in a way I'd never expected, and for the briefest of moments, I wondered if my family would ever truly see me, not as the odd one out, but as someone worth knowing. But even if they didn't, I knew I could keep standing in that gap. For MEA. For every family I'd ever helped. For myself. By the time the last report was filed and the last interview finished, dawn was breaking over Houston. The streets were almost empty, the early light silvering the puddles on the road. The neighborhood where the party had taken place was silent now, just a few catering vans clearing away folding tables and trash. It felt like another lifetime, the laughter, the music, the ordinary worries of family. I should have driven home, showered, collapsed into bed for an hour before the paperwork mountain called. But instead, I found myself steering toward my childhood house. It was automatic, some old instinct from when things felt simpler. When a parent's kitchen could still offer comfort after a long night. I parked in the driveway, the engine ticking in the quiet, and stared at the familiar front door. Dad answered after the second knock, still in his robe, hair mussed from sleep. He blinked, confusion and concern flickering across his face as he took in my dirt-stained jeans, the rumpled hoodie, the badge at my hip. "Ashley? It's barely 6. Are you okay?" His voice was hoarse, cautious, as if bracing for bad news. I didn't trust myself to speak at first. Instead, I reached for my phone, pulling up the local news stream. The story was already running, looping footage from the rescue, blue and red lights, the line of police cars, a female detective, me, carrying MAA Sanders out of the warehouse, shielded by tactical officers and blinking flashbulbs. The reporter's voiceover cut in. Detective Ashley Carter, lead investigator, was instrumental in the safe return of 8-year-old MIA Sanders, who was abducted from her home last night. The Houston PD credits her decisive leadership and experience in abduction cases for bringing the girl home safely. I watched Dad as he watched the video. His eyes darted from the screen to me and back again, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. For years, he'd made assumptions about my job, maybe even convinced himself I was barely scraping by, cleaning up after real heroes, not leading the charge. I could see the moment the realization landed, heavy and inescapable. He sank onto the hallway bench, the phone still in his hand. That's you. You're the one they're talking about." I nodded, the fatigue settling into my bones. "It's what I do, Dad. Every day." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. The silence between us was dense, but not angry, not this time. It was the silence of two people, finally seeing each other clearly after years of looking away. "You never told us," he said at last, voice small. I thought. I finished the sentence for him, gently. "You thought I couldn't hold down a steady job. That I ran away from something. That I wasn't living up to what you wanted." He looked down at his hands, ashamed. I wanted you to have it easier. I thought maybe if you stayed close, took something safe, you'd be happier." I sat down beside him, the exhaustion making my movements slow. "I'm happy. Not always, not in every way, but when I help people, when I make a difference. It's worth it. Even if it means missing birthdays or making you worry." He shook his head, rubbing his face. "I've been so proud of Jessica, of your sister, of the others, but I never thought about what your life really meant." I offered a tired smile. "It's okay, Dad. Most people don't. Most people see the uniform, the badge, and make up the rest. I let you think what you wanted because it was easier than explaining every day. But this," I gestured to the news clip, still playing on his phone. "This is the real me." He reached out, squeezing my shoulder. "Ashley, I'm proud of you. I should have said it a long time ago. I should have listened more." Something in me eased at those words. Maybe I'd never fully believe I was enough, not for the family, not for myself, but I realized then that their approval wasn't what drove me. I did this work because I needed to, because someone had to. My phone buzzed again, shattering the quiet. It was an update from Officer Nguyen. The suspect was in custody, taken without incident just outside city limits. Relief rolled through me. Another ending, another beginning. I rose, pulling my jacket tighter. I have to get back. There's a lot of paperwork waiting, and the department will want a statement for the media. Dad stood, hesitating. Do you need anything? Breakfast? Coffee? I hesitated, feeling how much I wanted to say yes, to stay in the kitchen for a while and let myself be a daughter, not just a detective. But the job pulled me back. It always did. Maybe next time, I said. But thank you, Dad. Really? He nodded, emotion thick in his voice. Come home more, when you can. Not just for us. For you. I gave him a tired, grateful smile, and stepped out into the brightening morning. Feeling lighter, if only for a moment. The city was waking up, and somewhere, a family was holding their child close again because I'd shown up when it mattered. That, I realized, was enough. More than enough. By the time I left Dad's house, the sky was bright and cloudless, but I felt the night's weight still pressing at the back of my eyes. The city around me was already awake, trucks rumbling down the street, kids gathering at bus stops, joggers making their morning rounds, each life unaware of how close tragedy had come to their doorstep last night. I drove back to my apartment in near silence, the radio tuned to static until I realized the news was still playing. My name came up twice, once in a local traffic update, and once in a national segment that looped footage of me carrying MIA Sanders to safety. It felt surreal, watching myself move across the screen. No makeup, hair pulled back, uniform rumpled, exhaustion clear on my face. Not glamorous, not perfect, but real. My phone kept buzzing, the family group chat exploding. First, it was Jessica. Ashley, I just saw the news. You're a hero. I had no idea you were leading those kinds of cases. Please call me when you're free. Then Megan. Mom and Dad are talking about you non-stop. Even Uncle Steve says he's never been prouder. The whole family's in shock, but the good kind. Come for dinner soon? Even Aunt Linda, always so controlled and judgmental, chimed in. Just wanted to say I'm sorry for misunderstanding you. I didn't realize what your work really meant. Thank you for what you did. I scrolled through their messages in the sunlight of my kitchen, each one more effusive than the last. For years, I'd been the one nobody knew quite how to talk about at family gatherings, the cousin with the mysterious job, the daughter who left home, the sister who didn't call enough. Now, suddenly, everyone seemed to see me through new eyes, brave, capable, even essential. But I also knew this moment would pass. Soon, life would go back to normal. Jessica would go on with her retirement plans, Megan with her children, Aunt Linda with her book clubs and social circles. Still, something in their tone had shifted, a respect, maybe, or at least a curiosity. Maybe that was enough. I brewed strong coffee, letting the ritual ground me, then sat at my small kitchen table and let myself just feel. Pride? Yes. Exhaustion? Absolutely. But mostly, relief. The case had ended well, better than most. MAA was safe. The man responsible was already behind bars. There would be paperwork, interviews, a debriefing with the FBI since we crossed state lines. But for once, the ending was as close to happy as real life allowed. As I sipped my coffee, the phone rang again, this time, Jessica. I smiled, answering on the first ring. Hey, Jess. Ashley. Oh my God, are you okay? You look so tired on the news. Not bad, just like you've been through hell. I let myself laugh, the sound softer than I expected. It's been a night, I won't lie. Jessica hesitated, and then her voice grew serious. Why didn't you ever tell me? Any of us? I mean, I knew you were with the police, but I didn't know you led teams, handled abductions, ran entire operations. We all just thought. As she trailed off, embarrassed. You thought I was drifting. I finished for her. Or maybe just lost? Not lost, as she corrected gently. Just different. I think I get it now, at least a little. It takes a kind of strength I don't have. I was quiet for a moment, letting the words settle. It's not about strength. I have to do this. It's who I am. Jessica was silent, and I knew she was thinking, turning it over, trying to imagine the world I lived in. Well, I'm proud of you. I know I never said it before, but I always looked up to you, even when I didn't understand what you were doing. That caught me off guard. For years, I'd envied Jessica's easy popularity, her clarity of purpose. I'd never imagined she looked at me with anything but mild confusion or pity. Thanks, Jess, I said, and meant it. That means more than you know. There was a pause, filled with the easy closeness of old friendship. Mom's already planning a family dinner. She says you get to pick the menu, and nobody's allowed to ask you when you're settling down or why you aren't married. I snorted. That might be a first. Jessica laughed, light and true. You've earned it. Besides, you can always tell them you're working if you need an excuse to leave. I might just do that. She grew quiet again, then said softly, I promise you'll come this time? Caleb's been asking if superheroes eat dessert. I closed my eyes, picturing Caleb's hopeful face. The family crowded around a too small table, laughter rising above the noise. For the first time in years, the idea didn't feel suffocating. I'll be there, I promised. We hung up, and I set the phone aside, letting my thoughts wander. I thought about the roads not taken, the safe jobs, the lives that would have been easier, maybe, but not right for me. I thought about my father's quiet apology, my family's new respect, Jessica's pride. Most of all, I thought about Emmy Sanders, sleeping safely in her own bed, her parents whispering thank yous to a world that sometimes, just sometimes, gets it right. I poured another cup of coffee and watched the city wake up outside my window, sunlight washing the buildings gold. I'd chosen this path, with all its costs and all its gifts, and now, maybe for the first time, I was truly glad I had.